I get asked often by students, former students, things like that, like, how did you break into venture? And there's been historically kind of a path that one takes to do it. And I deviated from it a little bit in the sense that I didn't come from a
Mm-hmm.
pedigreed university. I wasn't at a rocket ship prior, kind of was more of an operator, that kind of thing. But like you have just literally completely broken the mold in terms of how one has done it. And it's just, I think it's really interesting. And I think it's at a minimum, it doesn't seem like you were constrained by here's how one typically goes about doing this, and you've kind of rewritten or played a role in rewriting a lot of those rules. And so I'd love for folks to hear kind of how someone like yourself in such a brief period of time kind of managed to kind of do this.
Great question. I think that it's interesting to consider it as like such a short amount of time. So I first learned about venture when I was 19, and I binge watched Silicon Valley on like HBO 7-day free trial.
Yeah.
And before then, I just thought it was like a bunch of old dudes like sitting in the mahogany library, smoking cigars, picking their like friends to invest in.
Yeah.
And then when I saw really strong, female role models like in venture, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, you don't have to come from generational wealth to do this. Like, there aren't the level of constraints that I thought that there were in venture. I would say there are some elements of pattern recognition that mean like a lot of folks who see a path will be able to follow it. And so it's been really cool seeing my journey where I am at heart a content creator. And to me, that means like providing educational content about what I'm learning in venture in the hopes that the next generation of venture investors can better understand like the context and the climate, and of course take my work with a grain of salt because I'm still learning myself. But I think that building a platform specifically for me on Twitter, but I think you can do it on different social platforms. There's been examples of folks building platforms on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter. And I think that funds have become an interesting way for creators to basically monetize the platforms that they have. And so it's been really cool to see there's kind of like a rising crop of folks who have built platforms like Matt Conwell. Was kind of like the blueprint. He was one of the earliest folks to start a rolling fund, and like really use his like Twitter presence to do that. Sahil Lavangia at Gumroad did the same. So I think there's something to be said for the consistency and amount of effort that it takes to build a niche platform and then meet really cool founders that are building in your area of interest. And then at the same time, you have folks that have capital and the resources to support you, but they're not on the ground level seeing what you're seeing because, they're kind of like at a different abstraction layer. So I think like realizing that everyone is just a person. There's a part of me that also saw investment banking, and I was like, I just heard like all these horror stories, and I was like, that doesn't feel like I want it to be part of my journey. And I want to like put in the work and like work really hard to earn my position, but that didn't feel like it aligned with what I wanted. And I think that's a common theme within my generation, or Gen Z specifically, is folks are listening to their intuition about like what they're aligned with and being very like rigorous about what aligns with them and their values and what they want to do.